The conflict of our thought, feeling and action, Murdo MacDonald-Bayne. With wisdom did the Eternal found the earth. Proverbs 3:19. We cannot separate the inner from the outer or the material from the spiritual. Is one not the product of the other? The inner becomes the outer, what is visible is but the invisible, what we create within comes to the outer. Whether we like it or not, we are responsible for good or bad, for they are both the expression of the inner. Only in the creation of reality is there freedom from good or bad. Love worketh no ill to his neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. Many people are deprived of the fulfillment, the satisfaction, and the happiness they anticipate from the fulfillment of their desires. This is due to the methods they ignorantly employ, methods which interfere with the growth, development, and happiness of their neighbors. While the law of creation fulfilled their desires, yet in their ignorance they overlooked the most necessary element of success and happiness, so all their accomplishments were beset with difficulties. They did not realize that love your neighbor as yourself was the fulfillment of the law. In other words, the first consideration in the fulfillment of desire is your neighbor. When you think this out, you will see how necessary it is. When we take this higher law into our operations, the things that beset us rearrange themselves in a wonderful way. They straighten out in the most unexpected fashion. We need not designate special ways and means. The higher intelligence is capable of leading us into avenues more wonderful and infinitely more satisfactory than we ourselves could have chosen. But first we must fulfill this one most important part of the bargain: do unto others as you would have them do unto you. When man's thought is purified through understanding of the law of love, to love his neighbor as himself, he will love God in a practical way, and to love God is to be lifted to the throne of wisdom and power. Yet nearly everyone is restricted by their limited understanding arising out of their reactions to conditions in life, so they further perpetuate these conditions against which they rebel. Wrong reaction to things external limits our creative ability. Trust your affairs to the Eternal and your plans will prosper. In the proportion that we know ourselves, so shall we know God. This is not a sanctimonious attitude of mind or a mind caught up in ethics nor in virtues or opposites, for if we are caught up in these we shall never understand ourselves or reality. So many people become virtuous to obtain a place in heaven, so then virtue is founded on craving, which becomes a vice, the more spiritual than thou attitude. The Master said, "The last shall be first and the first shall be last," showing that there is no separation. The first and the last are the same, it is the one life manifesting through all. When we create distinction we have separation, and separation leads to antagonism. Jesus is said to have associated himself with robbers and sinners. He understood them and their difficulties because he understood himself. They were more ready to receive the truth than those in high places saturated with envy, mistrust, separation, and superstition. Scan your mental field and see how much of your thinking is influenced by your existing conditions. If you love the created more than the Creator, then no matter what you possess, your mind will be negative. But if you love the Creator more than the created, no matter what condition you are in, your positive attitude will lift you out of the darkness into the light. If you live in the material in opposition to spiritual, or you live in the spiritual in opposition to the material, there will be no understanding and your thought, feeling, and actions will be in conflict. But if you intelligently comprehend the material, you will come to the spiritual, and thereby the division between the outer and the inner ceases. There is no conflict between the inner and the outer. All this conflict arises in man's own mind through his lack of understanding, so his thought feelings become disturbing. If you condemn one and praise the other, you no longer understand. But if you realize and discern that you are the center of all objective and subjective existence and comprehend your reactions, your feelings, your beliefs, your cravings, your fears, then you will begin to understand yourself. Only when this is accomplished will there be perfect balance, creative understanding, and inward peace. If you deny the material world, or if you try to escape from it, if you distort it, shaping it to your own fancies, then your spiritual world will be an illusion also, thus hindering the true expression of reality. To be, being is to be related to both, and understanding this relationship. But if you distort this relationship by becoming more and more self-centered, more isolated, then mental conflict will result. When we understand our desires, our cravings, our beliefs, our superstitions or fancies, our thought, feelings and reactions, we will begin to understand ourselves and that which is behind both spiritual and material. We will see that these things do not affect the reality in us, except we are caught up in these things. If you are uninfluenced by these things, then you will discover the immeasurable. For it will come into being by itself when the mind frees itself from the past, from conditioning influences which create false values. To discern, to observe, you must be detached, uninfluenced, must cease to be a slave to public opinion, tradition, propaganda, however subtle it may be. The influence of environment shapes also thought, feeling, and this too must be understood. Only through freedom from all that hinders the real can the real be expressed. When you are discerning your thought, feelings continuously, you will realize how easily you have been persuaded to accept, to believe, to act. Is it not so that the daily newspapers, radio, cinemas, books, periodicals shape our thought, feeling? Can you say that you are capable of freeing yourself from their limiting influence? What about the differing cults and religious thought, feelings? One person will accept this while another will accept that, and by doing so create antagonisms and conflict. Can you discern clearly how this imitative acceptance is influencing and fashioning thought, feeling? In this imitative confusion there is little hope of finding the real. It is said that a belief in God will change the world. But we have had a belief in God for centuries, yet we have created a terrible world of strife and misery for 3/4 of its population. Has our belief in God altered our intentions in the racial field of action? Have we not taken from the heathen races a belief to give them another belief? Yet because we do not practice what we preach, the poor unfortunates who look to us for wisdom and love are sadly disillusioned. Both the savage and the highly civilized believe in a God. But this belief has not done away with killing, oppression and exploitation. On the contrary, it has added more subtle methods of destruction and persecution in the name of peace, in the name of God. If we can put away these contending beliefs and ideologies, we will be better able to bring about a deep change in our daily living, thereby bringing about the means for a better world. Human beings are more important than beliefs, differing creeds, political ideas, and ideologies. Is it not our everyday thought, feelings, actions caught up in false values that have caused all wars, strife, and misery? Is it not so that we have changed little in our thoughtlessness, our exclusive nationalism, our racial and dogmatic creeds, lack of goodwill and compassion? Unless we discern this with a clear mind, we will create further chaos and sorrow for ourselves and others. Is not the divine truth, love your neighbor as yourself, our only protection? But how can we love our neighbor unless we first understand ourselves? Is it not so that we are still the result of the past and the past is still influencing our actions? Without understanding this, we only invite further disaster. Thought, feeling, action based upon the past becomes a hindrance to the expression of the real. When our thought, feeling is anchored to the past, made dependent upon the created, the past or future, understanding of the ever-present is not possible. What is the use of having a belief in God unless we first understand ourselves? Only through spontaneous flow of the ever-present life in the mind that has silenced the past and future can the glory of the uncreated be known. In this alone is there true creativeness which brings goodwill, peace and brotherly love. This spontaneous flow of the ever-present life must be free from the memory of the past. What I mean is this: when you see a beautiful sunset, in that moment of beauty there is a spontaneous creative inward joy. When you wish to repeat the experience through memory, there is no such spontaneous creative joy. You try to imagine through memory, you try to get that same spontaneous inward joy, but it is not there. Therefore we will not build upon such a flimsy foundation as a memory, but upon the eternal ever-present life. Instead then of trying to strengthen our belief, our ideologies let us become more aware of our thought, feelings, for what our thought, feelings are, so is our world. Our belief in God is of little value to us, if by our thought, feelings and actions we make the world more terrible and ruthless. Harmony is the foundation of our being, and true discernment of our thought, feelings and actions will enable us to cooperate with that divine nature that was revealed through Jesus, our divine brother. He loveth the stranger in giving him food and raiment. Psalm 146, 9. If thou be wise, thou shalt be wise for thyself. Prove. 9:12. Benediction. O ever-present life, wisdom is waiting to give joyful revelation of thy presence. Man's mind has been clogged with beliefs and illusions of the past and has not heard thy eternal voice. Yet thy love wash away all race, color, and class prejudices, and in thy everlasting and ever-present wisdom we will experience that spontaneous creative joy, when our minds are freed from the burden of memory. The paths we have trod will melt like the snow before the blazing sun of truth, O ever-present life. My peace and my love remain with you. Yours very sincerely, Murdo MacDonald-Bayne.